Honorable Minister Anupam Paujinda, Honorable Minister Dr. Pichet Duong Kabirot, Ambassador Philip Calvert, Ambassador Peter Prugel, Dr. Kurasae Chanawong, Mr. Isara Phongkunkit, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome and good morning, Sawadee Krap. First of all, I would like to express our deep sympathy to those people affected by recent earthquakes in Japan and Ecuador, and I wish their safety and also speedy recovery from the impacts of the disasters. Asia and the Pacific region, while endowed with rich natural resources, is also subject to all major types of natural hazards, such as earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, cyclones, tsunamis, droughts, floods, and typhoons. Natural hazards present one of the most serious threats to inclusive, sustainable socio-economic development in Asia and the Pacific. This causes significant loss of life, disrupt millions of lives, and undermine development gains across the region. Over the 10-year period, 2005 to 2014, 426,991 lives were lost in the region as a consequence of natural hazards, 52% of global total. An estimated 1.4 billion people were affected by natural hazard events, representing 85% of the global total. Reported direct physical losses reached over $0.7 trillion, equivalent to an average 198 million loss per day. The region accounted for 49% of total global losses over the same period, far higher than the region's share in global GDP. These rising losses reflect increases in exposure and vulnerability to natural hazards as countries expand and develop with insufficient regard to disaster risk. Climate change is potentially set to exacerbate this trend, resulting in even higher losses in the region in the future. SMEs are the largest group of businesses in the Asia-Pacific region. They represent over 97% of all enterprises in the region and employ over half of the workforce. Hence, when disasters strike, it is the SME sector that is often most seriously affected. In Thailand, 90% of the damage and losses incurred due to the 2011 floods was borne by the private sector, particularly in the manufacturing sector. Similarly, in the Philippines, more than 90% of the damage and losses from Typhoon Yolanda in 2013 was felt by the private sector, including manufacturers, service providers, cottage industries, and informal businesses. Disruption in the operation of SMEs affect not only the SMEs, but also their employees, their host communities, the other business that depends on them, and ultimately the economy of the country. The impact of the disasters on private businesses includes disruption of property and equipment, damage to stocks, loss of revenue due to business interruption, increases in operational cost, and the occurrence of other unexpected expenses. Disasters can affect the long-term economic sustainability of a business, potentially resulting in loss in market share due to the transfer of clients to competitors, the movement of skilled workers, and severed connectivity with suppliers and retailers. Disasters can also result in loss of livelihoods while SMEs are recovering with adverse consequences for dependent households. In the aftermath of Typhoon Yolanda, only 40% of SMEs were able to resume operations after 3 months. Until now, many of the affected businesses have remained semi-operational and are still recovering from the impacts of the typhoon. For example, around 33 million coconut trees were reported to have been damaged by the typhoon. This means that the coconut industry will need about 6 to 7 years to recover. In order for SMEs to achieve sustainability and resilience, we need to enhance their capacities. We need to provide them with tools to help them better manage disaster risk. We need to educate and assist SMEs in adopting disaster risk reduction measures. While access to financing is extremely valuable to SMEs after a disaster, if SMEs continue to be located in hazard-prone areas, if disaster risk considerations are not factored in their business plan, if their supply chains are not resilient to disasters, it will only be a continuous cycle of debt for them. The key challenges for businesses is to reduce the risk they face from impacts of disaster, and when the disaster strikes, how to revive economic activity related to replacement and repair of damaged assets, and working capital to reverse and recover losses. A wide range of instruments is potentially available for this purpose, including contingency reserves, contingent loans, indemnity and parametric insurance tools, including property, crop, business interruption, and sovereign cover. By enhancing the knowledge of SMEs on how disaster risk consideration can be incorporated in their business decisions, SMEs can play a central role in strengthening a country's disaster resilience. At the same time, government should be able to embed disaster risk considerations into legislation, policies and regulation, institutional setup, and programs related to promoting SMEs, especially those supporting women-owned businesses. Government should be able to design incentives for SMEs to invest in disaster risk reduction and provide technical support to help SMEs assess risk, reduce risk, and manage the residual risk from natural hazards. The continuing trend of rising disaster losses points to one clear message. Much greater action is required to help strengthen the disaster resilience of SMEs. Action to assess risk, to reduce risk, and to ensure the residual risk is managed as efficiently as possible. It requires commitments of finance, know-how, and human resources on the part of governments, the private sector, civil society, and the international community in a whole array of legislative, regulatory, policy, planning, institutional, financial, and capacity-building instruments and mechanisms. Given the supply chain network and economic interdependency in Asia and the Pacific, we need to strengthen the regional disaster risk management partnerships. Planning for resilience needs to be a greater part of our development initiatives and investments. Given the impacts of the natural hazards, leaders must give credibility to disaster risk management by legitimizing it as a major building block for sustainable development and resilience growth. I urge the private sector to look at disaster risk management as an innovative and cost-effective investment, and to make risk-informed investment decisions to achieve business sustainability and resilience. Before I end, I would like to acknowledge the support from the Government of Canada through the Integrated Disaster Risk Management Fund being administered by ADB, and the Government of Germany for partnering with ADB in providing a regional technical assistance to selected Southeast Asian countries to strengthen the disaster resilience of SMEs. To all, let us use this forum to enhance knowledge sharing and better coordination among us to support SMEs in their efforts to effectively and efficiently integrate and implement disaster risk management practices in their investment decisions and business continuity management. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.